Hello again, I'm Dr. Nunez with Living Health. I was recently sent an article saying Arnold Schwarzenegger has mentioned he has been 80% vegan in the last 5 years and that he's seen a lot of health benefits. Well, let's get into this talk. And this series that I'm doing is about lifestyle medicine. These are the choices you make on a daily basis that impact your health and your well-being, what's under your control that you can do, the choices you make every day. If you like these kinds of videos, press that thumbs up, press the subscribe button, leave a comment, which is always appreciated. And let's get right into this. So 80% vegan, and he says he's received a lot of health benefits. Is that hard to do? Well, I don't know specifically what diet he's doing because he doesn't go into the details and the articles don't talk about this. I will link down below in the description to the article where they reported this. But if you look at your diet for a man, that might be 2,000 calories in a day. Well, 20% of that is 400 calories. So is that a lot that you might not be eating that's vegan, that's not plant-based? Actually, it is. It's quite a bit. And I'm going to link to you down below too on some of the USDA calorie counts on some of these foods. And what I want to highlight here is that being 80% vegan could mean that you might be eating a steak every day. And let's go into that. So I'm going to bring up the USDA site where it shows us that a steak, say a top sirloin, that's 100 grams. Now 100 grams is just like 3.5 ounces. It's not a whole lot. And it says that 100 grams of steak has 219 calories. So you could eat almost 200 grams, something like a 7-ounce steak, and still be around 400, 440 calories in that range. And if you're eating 2,000 calories, that would be 20% of your calories in a day. So is it hard to achieve? No. Do you get some benefits from being more plant-based? You probably do get some benefits. You may have to go beyond that 80% in some cases, depending on what it is you're eating. So yes, the rule of thumb I tell people though is plants have no cholesterol and have fiber. Meat has cholesterol and has no fiber. So if you use that as your rule of thumb and you try to rebalance, definitely going 80% plant-based is an improvement. I will caution you, if what you're doing plant-based is that you're eating just white rice or potatoes or French fries and you're eating pasta and that's what you're doing, well, you're going to run into some issues with calorie control. If you're adding oils in there and fats, you're going to get a calorie control issue. If you're adding sugar in there in desserts, which is vegan too, that's going to be a problem. And it can be a problem beyond if you're diabetic. It could be a problem if you're pre-diabetic. It could be a problem with weight control. So even though you're vegan or plant-based, what we also like to emphasize here is whole food. So less processed foods. And so those white starches, the white refined flours, sugars, these are all refined foods. Those things you want to avoid, and you want to stick more to the vegetable department of produce. And I also want to emphasize here, and I've said it in other talks, the fruits. Fruits can be high in sugar. Always it's better not to do the juice, but to eat the fruit. So don't squeeze an orange and drink the juice. You're just concentrating the sugar. It's better to eat the orange instead. But getting back to this issue of the meats, there's another caveat here. If you're eating red meat, different cuts have different amounts of fat, and the way the animal is raised can impact the fat content as well. And what's important to note is that fat, whether it's oil, even olive oil, or saturated fat, which might be that white or yellowish fat that you see on cuts of beef, is the higher calorie between carbohydrate, proteins, and fat. Fat has 9 calories per gram, okay, compared to carbohydrate and protein down around 4 calories per gram. So if you're eating a cut of meat that is very fatty, you're going to get a higher caloric intake with that. I also want to make a different caveat here when we're talking about beef, and this might merit a whole other talk, and we can get into, which is grass-fed and grass-finished beef versus grain-fed or grain-finished beef. In general, what we have found is that the grass-fed is leaner, lower in fat, so you might see that grass-fed, if you're comparing similar cuts, is going to have lower calories than grain-fed, which may be more marbled and has more fat in it. The other thing to look at is the quality of those fats that's in there. And usually in the studies, and I'm going to quote one below, you will find that the grass-fed has a better balance of omega-6s to omega-3s than the grain-finished beef. Now, it's more common in other countries to see that the predominant beef on their marketplaces, whether it's the UK, New Zealand, or Australia, might be more grass-fed, grass-finished, which is pasture-raised beef. In the US, sometimes you see a lot more of the grain-finished beef. That's the cattle may be raised out in a pasture for a good part of its life, and then the last half year or year of its life, it's in a feedlot and they're feeding it other supplements and grains or sweet feed and things like that. So that's something to look at. And the labeling is important. You want to see in the labeling not just grass-fed, because that could mean that at any point in its life it was fed, but it's been finished or raised all its life on a pasture, just eating the grasses. The other caveat to look at is where the beef is coming from, because if it's coming from an area that has a lot of grass and foliage that's very fertile, that beef is going to taste different too than in a more arid area where there's not as much or as rich a grass and the like. So anyway, I did want to quote from the USDA here, and I'll put it below the link. If you look at, and it's hard to pin this down with the USDA numbers because they don't have exactly the same cuts. But if you look at a sirloin that's 100 grams that we spoke about, that is a regular sirloin, and this is trimmed, so you've trimmed it so it looks as lean as possible. That has 219 calories for 100 grams. But if you look at a grass-fed strip steak, that's going to have, for the same 100-gram steak, 117 calories. That's a big difference. That's a 100-calorie difference right there. So if you double that for a larger steak, you're talking about 200 calories of mostly fat difference in calories that you're going to see there. So again, I want to point out, look at these things in detail. Is it easy to get to 80% vegan? Well, if you think that you can eat a steak every day and make the claim that you're 80% vegan, you can. You have to look at everything else that you're eating, though. And if you want to be healthy and the plant-based, whole food is important. So you're not eating the refined and processed foods, but you're eating more of the vegetables, more of things that have fiber in them naturally from the plant world. That will help you with the absorption of cholesterol, will help you feel more full as well. And you can probably easily climb past the 80% vegan, and you might see some of the benefits that in the article Arnold Schwarzenegger is quoted as mentioning himself. So if you like these kinds of talks, press that thumbs up, press the subscribe button, press the little bell for notifications or further videos, and leave a comment. It's always appreciated. Until next time, I'm Dr. Nunez with Living Health. Bye-bye.